Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station Travel and Leisure Show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station Travel Show, where every third Wednesday we get to chat with Cheryl Ogle. It is our Hey, Want to Go Travel Wednesday with her. She is a world traveler, a travel advisor, and owner of the travel company Hey, Want to Go. I do. However, today she's going to tell us a little bit about, hey, when you're traveling, what about those gratuities? In fact, we get questions about this all the time. And then we sometimes go, well, I don't know about this. What do we do with the bellhop? Oh, and then what about those cruises where it says everything, all gratuities are included? Really? Are they? Yeah, this is a good topic, Cheryl. So welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Nice to chat with you.
You know, the gratuity thing, to me, it's like, I just want to say plan for it, because I think all the workers in hospitality work so hard. They work on holidays that, you know, we don't want to. We want to be on vacation with our friends and family. They often are at work doing some things that are kind of really hardcore, especially housekeepers in hotels and inns and bed and breakfasts and dishwashers. And there's some really nasty jobs in hospitality. So, and a lot of times they'll actually share tips and things like that. But we've learned some things or two on our journey. And you've got a great blog post, and everyone, the episode description, if you look in the description notes, I've got a link to Cheryl's blog about gratuities, where she really outlines it, and also goes right to her website as well. And you got to go there. It is heywannago.com, and just go follow her on Facebook and Instagram too. She takes us everywhere she goes. But can we start with hotels? Because that's something that I think we may forget. Even if you're staying, like, you know, at one of those, you know, roadside motel things, and, you know, you're caught in a rainstorm or something, and say, hey, let's pull over and get what we can. Tip them.
Right.
Tip everybody, right?
Yes. Well, it's, you know, I think one thing you need to think about is that if you can afford to travel, you need to count on having some gratuities along the way. Don't think that just the basics of hotel, flight, you know, rental car or whatever, that's everything, every cost. Hotel workers they have so much responsibility, and they're working to turn around a hotel room and give you a clean, comfortable room, you know, that's maybe flipped every day. And when you're calling saying, can you bring me extra towels, because I really like extra towels, and I want 4 pillows, and, you know, I mean, when you're asking for some extra things, you're causing extra work on top of an already difficult workload. So be generous with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting extra pillows. I like a lot of pillows, but I'm going to make it worth their time. You know, if I'm creating extra work for them, I feel like that is fair. There's a trade-off.
Well, it's kind of weird, because some restaurants actually have kind of gone like, we're not doing tips. It's kind of a wonky thing now, and when you don't know who's doing what and where. But I also want to say the flip side with hotels is, and we'll get to restaurants, but hotels, like, sometimes you get mad at the hotel, like, oh, this needs to be updated. I'm not leaving a tip. Hey, it's not the housekeeper's fault. I'm just saying, if your bed is clean and those pillows are nice and fresh, you know what I mean? It's going to be, don't nail the housekeeper over it. It's not her fault about what the hotel was done.
Exactly. That is not her job, and his or her job. And so don't punish them for that. You know, I was recently on a stay. A lot of hotels are getting away from daily housekeeping unless you specifically request. And I was recently in a city, and I was there for 6 nights, and we were offered housekeeping every day. And most days we really just asked them to refresh the bathroom a little bit, make sure there was extra toilet paper and washcloths. I make my own bed every morning anyway, but you know, you want to still take care of them.
Mm-hmm. And
they're doing their job.
You made a point also about when you're somewhere for an extended time, about, you know, whether you should do it daily, you know, or like how often you should do it. And Nancy and I, you know, on our tour here, you know, we travel full time. At one point we were under contract for Miss Media work, and stayed in a hotel for an extended time. And we'd done it like once a year that way, right? And so the head of housekeeping was a very sweet lady, and everybody trusted her, including the hoteliers, right? Like whatever she says goes. And so we would stay for like maybe 3 weeks to a month, and we would go and give her, here's the tips for everyone to share, including her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one year we went back and the staff just looked at us like, yeah, you're the people who don't tip. And we're like, what? Because we were giving a couple $100.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm going, what do you
She was
mean we're
talking.
not tipping you? She took the tips and got caught for some other fraudulent things. And so I was like, oh my gosh, so we've just been giving this woman money and she's not really doing the
Mm-hmm.
work. And they laughed because she just sat in the laundry room with her phone. She had the nice, pretty long fingernails and everything, and everybody else is scrubbing toilets. And so they hated her. Like I mean, this last time we were like, oh my gosh, we felt horrible. And of course, made sure everybody got like, now who gets, because even the hotelier themselves were so busy that like I didn't even want to give it to them in case they forgot. You know what I mean? So we really
Right.
got to a point of like every time we saw someone, just tip them then, like give them money, because it was bad. I mean, that was fraudulent, but it can happen in any business anywhere. So now like we've learned every time we're in a hotel, just if you're there for a week, and they're going to clean something, or you see them, just tip them. That's kind of where we're at. So what do you think about
Right.
that in regards to, you touched on that in your blog about how frequent if you're there for a while, because sometimes like especially a cruise, you could be on the same ship for a couple of weeks, right? 2 to 3 weeks even.
Right. Well, on a cruise is a very different experience because you will have, if you're not changing cabins, you will have the same cabin steward all week or all 2 weeks or whatever. They don't rotate like in a hotel. I understand hotel will often rotate staff and everyone goes up a level or you change halls so that it just spreads it around. But on a
Yeah.
cruise ship, yeah, if you're on a week long cruise or a 2 week cruise, you'll have the same person. And if you want to do something regularly, daily, you may, remember that you're already paying gratuities daily. And so it is sufficient if you're not asking for special things.
Mm.
If you've been high maintenance and you say, most cruises now they come in once a day. But if you're saying, I really want I want ice in my cabin twice a day and I use it and I enjoy it, that's fine, but make it worth their time
Yeah.
and give them something, maybe offer them $5 a day, whether you do it at the end or what. They are low paid. They are working almost around the clock. I mean, they're just working nonstop so that you have a great week. And they have in recent years they have given cabin stewards more cabins to clean, switched to once a day, but now they're cleaning twice as many cabins. So just don't think, well, they're only coming in once a day, so they have half a day open. No, they don't. And even
Mm-mm.
when you don't see them in the hallway cleaning, they are behind the scenes. They are helping with laundry services. They are folding towel animals to be used later. They're inventorying
Yeah.
supplies and things. So they're not in their room watching Netflix, waiting till they can scrub your toilet again.
No,
Be
gosh,
be
no. I mean,
mindful of that.
it's such a thankless job. It is such hard work. Nancy and I've done it and I've done it a lot. And I'm like, like even working in a restaurant, everybody has to get each other's back from, management down and down to up, because if someone's sick or something goes wrong, it's whoever's first, really, a call of duty, right? Like if there's a break, you're like everyone's eating in a restaurant, you're going to go in the back and start rolling, the silverware into, serviettes. You went to England, see? Now I'm in serviette mode. Napkins, everybody. You're gonna roll your,
Hmm.
you're gonna roll the cutlery, and all of that kind of stuff. So that kind of work and it's attention to detail. And a couple we know, really, sweet couple, recently went on a cruise, and they happy hour, like the cruise, it said all gratuities are included. So oh, that's great. I don't have to think about it. And they found out later that people were tipping and they had like the head waiter and the bartender lady or whatever knew their drinks, when they start to remember what you like
Mhm.
and don't like, know who you are, what you're up to, took extra special care of them and got real friendly, and they didn't tip them, and they came home with this remorse because it was too late. They found out from the other, friends that they'd made on the cruise, because it was a small river cruise, as they were
Mhm.
all off the ship and everything was over. They're like, oh yeah, we made sure we tipped them. And they're like, they were horrified because they have no problem tipping, right, at all. But
Mhm.
they thought
Right.
you weren't supposed to. And if you did, then they didn't know what to do,
Right.
and they were horrified. And it was the same with the excursions. That's where the whole conversation came up with. Someone said, oh no, we all tipped the excursions and all of that, because then they thought all of that was, they, they were so upset when they came home. They were really upset because
Oh.
they're such sweet people. They can obviously afford to do it. And I was like, I don't know what to say, because sometimes even us as media people, we're invited to go to all these places and do things. And then you're like, okay, who's doing what? And you have to, as media, you need to get that, is the CVB paying the gratuities or the writers doing the gratuities? You know what I mean? That needs to be up
Right.
front just for anybody in the industry. Even as you go around and do things, right? Don't you have to have that? Who's doing what? Be upfront, find out, because
Exactly.
at the end of the day, to not, the people who do the walking tours and all that, they're not making that much money. Even bed and breakfast, half of it's the owners doing the rooms, depending on the size of the
Right.
B&B, and they're working their tails off. Give them the
Mhm.
gratuity. Pay.
Right.
Everybody pay.
I can tell you
Yeah.
feel passionately about this.
I do. I do. I don't care where we are.
Yeah.
Every hotel room, I always
Right.
leave a couple bucks, depending on how long we stay, two to $10, depends on
Right.
how many days you're there. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So let's go back to the cruise thing about this couple. Um, when they say it's all taken care of, I mean, that is it's like when you go to a restaurant, they say if you have a party over 10, your bill's going to include the gratuity. Do you still leave a tip? So where is the fine print not being clear on this?
Well, okay, so I think, I mean, you just mentioned like when you have a large party and you go to a restaurant, they're automatically including an 18% tip is what I often see if I'm out with my family of six or more. Um, if service is mediocre or bad, use your judgment. I tip more than 18% when it's just me going out. Use your judgment, but know that something is already built in because they've worked hard, especially on large parties. And so they're covered in case you're the kind that doesn't tip. But I've been out before with people who tip poorly, and it's embarrassing. And I try to make up a little bit, but you can't.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
mean you can cover the whole party that you're with. And I heard one woman once say, this is a group of about 15 people. She said, "Oh, everyone else always tips, so I'm not going to worry about it." And I thought, you do your part. I mean, I was horrified that she really felt like that was okay. And she said, most people will overtip, and they'll get it. It's fine. I can't afford it. And I thought, well, then you can't afford to come out.
Exactly.
It's just part of it. But yeah, for larger parties, they're going to automatically, I think 18% seems to be a standard that is added. But if they have refilled, your kids' little Tommy Tippy cups, with lemonade 100 times and your tea and brought you the martini you like and everything,
And your
give them
kid threw
more,
their food up on their floor or on the floor or something. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah,
Come on.
they're having to clean
Yeah.
up carrots and chips and French fries and
Yeah.
things. Bump that up to 25%. You've made
Hmm.
a mess in there with your family reunion or whatever, and it's great you're going out, but be generous. Someone's got to clean up after you. What kind of mess are you leaving?
Well, yeah,
So,
it's funny because, that tip thing too. It's like, to me, I always thought it was minimum 20. It goes 20 to 25, or if
hmm
someone's really done something extraordinary, you do more than that, right? And I
right.
went into a sandwich shop the other day, a brand name, as we all know who it is, just on the road. And the girl did a very quick one sandwich, that Nancy and I were splitting. It was, I think if she spent even 2 minutes with us, it was fine. And the person before us was like changing their mind 10 times. Their kid was changing their mind 10 times. I was like, okay, I'm actually not going to wait this long. And I don't know if he tipped her, and he was just kind of
Mm,
draining her. And so you're paying and you're like, well, you're not being served on, but she did make you a sandwich and she is getting paid for making the sandwich. So they give you like options of how much to tip them. And it happened to me at a pizza place too. I had gift cards and you aren't seeing people make the food. You're not being served. And it was like, it's takeout, right? So
right.
like, what do you do on those levels? Because when we travel, we do take out sometimes and go back to our hotel room. So I always kind of give like the 10-15% more than the 20-25 when someone's catering to your every need in the restaurant. Do you know what I mean? So am I being
I
stingy
agree.
at this point? You can tell me I'm
No,
being stingy. It's fine.
no, I'm the same way. If I'm in a sit down restaurant, they have taken my order, brought me food, brought me a check, sit down experience, 25% or more. And a friend of mine starts at $10, no matter what size the order. I mean, assuming that's at least 20%. That's just her starting. So if she's alone, on a $20 meal, she's tipping 50%. She's a very generous tipper. But yeah, if you're having that sit down experience, 25% should be, really kind of your standard. But when I'm like you, if I'm ordering at a counter, and I don't do that very often, but I was in the airport last week and I bought a thing of mints, and the person never moved. I picked them up, put them on the counter, and they asked for a tip on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
No, not going to tip that. You've done nothing. Literally nothing. But if
So,
you're, I
yeah,
understand if you're in or making a sandwich, then yeah, I think 10% or so. That type of worker, as I understand it, they're making minimum wage or more. But the food
yeah.
servers, where in many states they're still making, $2 to $5 or $6 an hour, they're not making minimum wage, and that was when tips were brought in to make up for that, to bring that up.
Mm.
But it's kind of out of control where when I'm trying to buy some airport Altoids, I'm being asked to tip the person who rang me up but didn't
What?
offer any service.
Yeah. See,
You
there's a
know,
line.
that I don't understand.
Yeah. Now, what about excursions though? Like if your cruise line said gratuities are included and you go on an excursion, you know, I, you,
It would
yeah,
be standard to offer your tour guide something.
I think so. And
Yeah,
normally they pass a bucket
absolutely.
around. Well, in the States they do, but
Hmm.
depends on the culture. And that's the thing about world travel. Some people are quiet about it, right? And some people aren't so quiet, depending on where you are. It's like, here, bang the bucket,
Well,
put it in there.
yeah, and you don't need to make a big show of it. You don't want to come forward and go, "Here, I put in $10." I mean, that the Bible talks about. Don't be like that. Just have it in your palm, and usually they'll be waiting at the coach or when you get off the tour bus, and you can just shake their hand, and it goes right in their hand. Not a big deal. They're not opening it, going, "Ooh, that was only $1. That was 5." Do what you can, but be friendly, thank them. Most of the time, something that's worth it just as much as a tip is to go give them a review. And most of them
Mm.
are not shy about asking, saying, please go on TripAdvisor or Google reviews and, tell us what we did right. If we did something wrong, let's have a conversation, because they want that feedback. So
Hmm.
you can do that. You can thank them. They may hand you a card, say, this is my TripAdvisor link. Please go leave me a review, because that helps down the line for sure.
So is it different because I know you do a lot of travel in Europe versus the States in tipping, like in general or not?
Europe and the UK, they're very different. Um, America, and I hear Europeans say, I feel like Americans are out of control with their tipping. They see it too. But really there with food service, the idea is to round up, and maybe 10% would be very generous.
Oh, wow.
If you're in a pub in the UK, you will probably go order at a bar. You'll find your table, you go order at a bar. If your meal and your drink come to, say 17 pounds or something, you may want to pay them 20, which would be very generous, and they'll bring your food to you. But if you're sitting down, they take your order, about 10% would be
Mm.
standard. it is not like here, and it takes a while to get rid of that mentality of I've got to tip 25%. You know, they're expecting it. They're not. They're paid a living wage, so they're not relying on tips like American servers are. So it
And
is different.
I wonder about this now, how we are like a lot of restaurants have just gotten rid of the tipping completely. Your prices go up a little bit because minimum wage is, you know, especially if you're in California, as you know, Cheryl, California
Hmm.
is really expensive and minimum wage is going up and some restaurants can't keep up with it. But then I go, it's such a weird catch 22 thing. You know, don't you want your servers and your staff to actually be employed, um, and be able to live? You know, you don't want people
Right.
that are, you know, because drama comes from people not getting paid. You know what I mean? If
Hmm.
they're not happy coming to work, and I think some restaurants had success and some didn't, but I think from what I've heard and read, and we've done, you know, we do a lot of shows on minimum wage and stuff and the pros and cons of it. But I think at the end of the day, if your employees are being paid what they deserve, you know, and obviously being good employees, right? They're going to do a better
Hmm.
job and
Right.
customers are going to have a better experience. Like I've always heard that you want your company to have better reviews and happier customers and repeat customers, treat your staff well. That's kind of what I've always heard. That's a kind
Right.
of a good business rule. Um, so I don't know. It's interesting, huh? Of how the tips work. And tips are weird too. We knew a restaurant owner and we didn't really quite like him. He's not in business anymore. Check that out. He kept all the tips until the end of the year and divided them up for as a Christmas bonus. That's wrong.
Ooh. Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I
I don't
told you
like
Nancy
that.
and I didn't like him very much. And he lost his
Hmm.
business over it and he couldn't keep staff in a small mountain town. You don't do that in a small town when you have very few employees. And then when people walk out, they walk out from their tips. They did their work for that tip. It may have helped pay their rent, you know?
Right.
So, I kind of feel like we should almost as travelers sometimes do a little bit of investigation. Like sometimes I ask a server, you know, do you want me to give you cash versus the credit card even? Sometimes as a tip. What do you think of
Hmm.
that too? Because
I
sometimes
think
then
when
they
you can
get
do
taxed
cash,
on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I think cash is king, as they say. I rarely think about having cash on hand. I mean, if someone ever robs me, they're going to be so sad. Um, I'm just not good at cash. I don't think about it. But when I travel, I do try to have some bills handy for that. I mean, of course, I mean, when I'm traveling, I do. But yeah, if you have cash, then it's not having to go through a credit card system, or being taxed on. I mean, you do you with the IRS. I'm not offering tax advice, but um, I think that most people do prefer cash. I know when one of my daughters was a server, she loved cash
There's
instead of the
something cool
restaurant having
about,
to tip
yeah,
her out at the end. So,
you go running to the bathroom to count your cash, you know, it's like, how much did I make? You know, I was really cool to this, you know, I remember when I was very, very young working in a restaurant and I was so into it. And I tripped with a plate of food and it had a fish on it, like a whole fish fillet. And the fish fillet landed on the customer's lap, literally went off the table onto the
oh,
lap. And I'm like, I am so done. But I handled it immediately. I apologized. I went and got things cleaned up and everything. The restaurant backed me up. Good people, even though the chef was mean. He would, I mean, it's part of why I probably even tripped. He was like, you go in there and he just starts yelling at you. And I was what,
oh,
early teens. And that was like, what are you doing yelling at me? I don't know what to do. It was like a
oh,
life
oh,
lesson,
I
right?
hate that.
No,
Yeah,
but you learn to deal with people's personalities. And I remember not liking this, you know, but then going out, I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to hang out with the customers. They're fun." And I remember that happening and they still tipped me. And that is about good customer service, about taking care of it and the
right.
restaurant, the front of the house. took care of it. The chef remade the fish and of course yelled at me later, but it was about you take care of your customer and your customer will take care of you. And that they walked out like, okay, stuff happens. I was
Mhm.
also very lucky to have the right customer to throw fish on. But things
Yeah.
happen and it's how we handle it too. I think as travelers, mistakes happen
Right.
and
Right.
don't,
They're human, and
yeah.
give them some grace, because that is a hard job, and goodness knows I want some grace extended to me on my worst days.
Oh
Heck, I need it
my
on my best days
gosh, me
too.
too. Me
But
too.
yeah, but
That's a good
absolutely.
point.
I mean, things happen, and so just be nice. I know when I'm in a restaurant, in a sit down restaurant, I unsweet iced tea with lemon is my go to. And if you keep my iced tea fill, we're going to be best friends, and I'm going to make it up to you. I know you're going to run back and forth a lot, but keep my tea filled and offer me a to go cup at the end, and I'm going to be just happy as can be, and will tip you very, very well for making such a pleasant experience. And so
And the other thing,
that,
yeah, go go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say that, the thing about restaurants too is like the restaurant, once you have a really amazing time, but if you're going to sit there, you better be ordering dessert, ordering something so the
Mm-hmm.
restaurant can afford to keep you there because they,
Yes.
they move the tops out, the tabletops, it's like that's the truth. They're moving you in, moving you out. And that is about being sustainable. It's called running a business. It's nothing against you or anyone as a customer, but they have to, as many people as they can feed that night with the food, the better for them. But every restaurant has a different thing too. Some people go, okay, you're going to pay a high ticket. You can spend as long as you want. Everyone's a little different on it, but
Right.
just in general,
Right.
but it's the same for the waiters and waitress too. The all you
Mm-hmm.
can eat buffet thing, please, the buffet people still need to get paid. I
Right.
think a little bit here and there. They still come like there's a guy that comes with the box where it starts taking all your dirty plates and they
Mm-hmm.
deserve something. Don't ignore the people in the buffet. You may not have, some people may bring you soda or whatever, but um, the longer you're there, it's kind of a thankless job in a buffet. You know, when I think about the
Right.
workers in a buffet restaurant, it's thankless. Thank them.
Right, because you're required. I mean, I don't really go to all all you can eat buffets, but I know there's a salad place that
Especially if there's
I've gone to in
cake.
the past, and well, I'm not doing cake right now either, but I mean, really, you have to have a fresh plate, as you should, to go back for every serving, and so that generates a lot of dishes. If you're going back for just thinking, I just want a little bit more potato salad or whatever, so everything. So I mean, just think about the trickle down effect. It does take a village to keep these places running and washing the dishes and keeping them going, keeping them cleared and clean and everything. But one thing I want
Yeah.
to circle back to is we talked about tour guides.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big trend with free walking tours when you're
Mm-hmm.
traveling, and they're fantastic. And a lot of companies offer them, and you go and you do register to go on them, but there's no charge. But a friend and I were in Croatia, and we registered and went on one, and we were the only two who showed up. And so we were able to really pick this gal's brain, and I talked to her, as a travel advisor, to say, I want to know how this works. And so she was very, very kind and open about it. And she said that as someone who operates these free walking tours, they depend on gratuities at the end because they're not paid by their parent company. So if it's, I'm not going to name a company, but if, they operate under that, they have to then pay the company who they're operating under for each person who registered. So if you have 10 people register and 8 or no shows, and it's just myself and my friend who showed up, she's paying like €3 per person to the company because they think she had 10 people on her tour, and only 2 showed. She doesn't have any proof of that. And so
Oh
often
my
you'll see that's
gosh.
why some of these free walking tours say, hey, let's get a group picture. And I see them do this in front of the Tower of London every time I'm there, and it's a free walking tour. And that's what they're doing to send back to the company to say, hey, I had 14 people on my tour, and I'm paying you, $3 a person. And then, so it may end up, like in that case in Croatia, she lost money on the 8 people who didn't come because she had to still pay for their heads, even though they thought, oh, it's a free tour, we're just not going to show, it's no big deal. It is a big deal because
Wow.
most of these are having to pay something for who registered. So if you take the time to register and you're going to be a no-show, go back into the steps and cancel it. It doesn't take but a second, but cancel that so that they're not having to pay for you being a no-show. And then when you go, the idea is pay what it was worth. So my friend and I ended up with a private tour for 2.5 or 3 hours with this gal. And it was fantastic because we could ask questions, and she showed us what we wanted to see, took us to this private bar on the cliffs in Croatia and things like that. So we tipped her quite well, and I would highly recommend doing something like that. It was a great experience, but it was unfortunate for her that these other people were no shows and didn't cancel because she said that cost her money. So just something to be mindful. You don't know. You just think, oh, a free walking tour, I'll just join in, and then maybe I'll listen to some, and then I'll leave early. Well, if you leave early and you're not tipping anything, don't be that person. Don't do that
agree.
either.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. And I think that's with, not canceling a reservation at a restaurant.
Right.
That's rude too.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to cancel a reservation, cancel it. That's your people are holding that, and somebody could be standing at the door hoping, you know what I mean? It's, but just be polite, because I think right now we're watching in this country, restaurants that made it through COVID are closing. I mean, I can tell you we've been to 2 cities in the last month. Each city had lost 4 restaurants within a week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we've got to think, tourism is, this year's it's definitely working and people are going overseas, but it's fluctuating in weird ways in our country, especially for the small businesses. So we're seeing that a lot across the country. And I don't know if it's a political year or what, but every action we do as a traveler has, an effect to the other side. And, and we've got to think, as a travel community, I believe, when we go to someone else's country, we're in their house practically, right? Mm-hmm. And whatever we do affects them, and whatever they do affects us. So we've got to be civil and good and have some respect. And it's the same in traveling in our own country. Have some respect in how you handle things. You mentioned about reviews being a golden thing for folks. I would like to do a show on that because people's reviews, I don't know who they think they are sometimes. It's like, I was kind of raised that if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it. Like in the height of things, you can always have criticism, constructive criticism and an opinion, and you could be upset with something, but how do you handle it? And I would love to do something on that because, we've got to think about what our small businesses across the country and around the world go through. And no one's perfect every single day. We're supposed to be, but we're not. And like you use the word grace, and I think that's a really good word. How are you going to handle just if you have a crease or, oh my gosh, you saw a hair on your bed? Well, you know what? It could come from the washing machine. It could come from anything. It does not mean your bed was not cleaned. It doesn't even, that hair could have been washed and didn't get it into the lint, and, it's clean hair. You never, no one's perfect. And if you travel, you're going to have to take in a little bit of dirt. If your house is 100% spotless, perfect, well, then I hate to tell you, the rest of the world ain't. Yeah. So I think I would like to just say, can we have some grace? And there are times where the other side is, the host or the restaurant or whatever, the hotel may not be doing their part. That happens.
Hmm.
But this
Well,
big
there's
attack,
a difference between, things that are just simply dirty and they haven't been taken care of, and a hair that got left on your comforter in a hotel. Come on. I'm 59. I lose hair like crazy. I don't want someone walking through my house and, oh, there's a hair on the guest bed. Maybe because I just changed the sheets this morning, but can you not
it's
just pick it up and
shedding
take it in the
season.
trash? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
But that's the thing I'm talking about is,
yeah.
that grace of, you can go and say, hey, I've got this problem. There's a few times where I've had some serious issues in hotels, like being locked in the bathroom and not being
Right.
able to
Yes.
get out because they paint. And then when
Yeah.
I went to tell them about it, they didn't care to even do anything about it, and,
Yeah.
anyway, we won't go there. But it's rare that I will ever do anything negative on social media unless the company has actually basically pushed me to, that's the only form of communication. Well, then
Right.
let's go. you know,
Well,
so
and
it,
I think there is a time to certainly be real and be honest. And if I've booked a trip for you and we had some hiccups, let's communicate. Don't come home and not tell me that, hey, my hotel wasn't ready until 4 o'clock. You said it'd be ready at 3, or something. Communicate. Um,
yeah,
don't blast me on a review and say the hotel she picked was bad or whatever. I don't pick that. I mean,
yeah.
we all do the best we can, and you approved it. And so, if it didn't work out, you're not buying it. I'm sorry. Let's try to do better next time. But I actually got a 1-star review on Google a few months ago,
What? Are you kidding me?
and yeah,
Do
no,
I have to go? Do
no,
I have to go and take them out?
no, it's a man who called. I was in Europe. He called and left a message. He wanted a flight from Lubbock, Texas to Little Rock, Arkansas. I don't book much domestic travel. And he wanted a flight and a rental car. I don't, I wouldn't book a package like that anyway. It's not a complete package. And so I was in Europe, limited internet, and I sent a text a couple of hours later and I said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I always refer to another company in town who does a great job. Referred him there. So he blasted that company on my 1-star review for service that he never used from me. So anyway, about how terrible it was that I couldn't
Well,
help him.
let's do a show on this.
So
I'm gonna do a panel on this because what I see is people they're playing God. It's like, I want you out of business just because I got annoyed this morning. I got out of bed the wrong way. I'm going to be rude,
right,
and I see this everywhere, and there's the
yeah.
communication is horrible. It's horrific.
Well,
And
I,
some companies do have to step up. There are times, but the employees, I don't know, man. It's wonky. And as we have AI stepping in the middle, even in tourism and
ugh,
smart faceless check-ins and all of that, things are going to
mm-hmm,
get weird. And so I feel like, yeah, and thank you. You've inspired another show. So yeah, let's do that. We'll do
yeah.
that. We'll do that because I think as travelers, we need to get a grip, and I think also business owners too, small business owners sometimes have to also step up a bit too. It's not all everyone, but,
Yeah.
yeah, let's do a
Well, I'm
show on
not
that.
perfect, but I much prefer having a client come to me and say, "Hey, we had a problem with this. Okay, let's fix it. What could we have done differently?" And
Exactly.
just communicate. And that's not very often. And I really thought about how to respond to this guy because Google would not remove the review. And okay,
I
that's,
know.
if he had used my services and I'm a 1-star, that's fine. But you
Isn't that
called me
weird?
one time and I was in
Yeah.
Europe. So
Well,
I thought it
that's
was
what,
pretty nice that I even responded. But
like TripAdvisor, you have
yeah,
to be verified that you booked through them and stuff like that, right? So it's a
yeah.
little
No,
different.
Google, yeah, but I responded to him and just said, you're right. You did call me and I did refer you to the other company because I can't help with that package. But I said my 5-star reviews for people who have actually used my services speak for themselves and sent him on his way.
Yeah. Isn't it wild?
I'm not going to get in a little fighting match with him. He's upset. He'll
No,
never use my services again, which is thankful because I would not book for him. But
exactly. Well, and we're in that age, we really, as travelers, want an authentic experience, which means you want to be a match. Our friend Glenn Burrows, who has a
Yes,
tour
yes.
company in England, he's like,
Hmm.
oh no, I want to talk to the people before they come over. He has WhatsApp chats and Zoom chats, and because he
Hmm.
goes, I'm taking him around in the car. I'm taking him, it's in person, and they could just take one look at me and it's just not a match. It doesn't mean anything. It just, maybe you look like, Uncle Joe, and Uncle Joe's dirty Uncle Joe, and, maybe Glenn kind of has a resemblance, and therefore they won't. And Glenn is not a dirty
Right.
Uncle Joe, by the way. But um, for the record, everyone, he's the sweetest man. But
He's lovely. Yeah.
he is so awesome. I love Glenn. And great sense of humor too, because he puts up with Nancy and I. So he's got to have a good sense of humor. You do
There's that.
too. So you got a good sense of humor. But the reality is, it's got to be a match. And like you're saying, okay, well, what you want is not what I serve, right? It's like going into an
Right.
ice cream shop
Exactly.
and saying, I want cake. Well, you may have one bit of cake thing that goes with a specific ice cream thing. See, I always bring it back to cake, and that's going to work. And that's what we do. But I'm not going to give if the cake is what you want, then this may not be the cake. You don't get
Right.
mad at me because I'm an ice cream shop and you want a cake. You can't do that.
Exactly.
So we're not a match. That's the point. So it's about finding the
Exactly.
match. And so that communication, like you say, is everything. And I think that's when we come to gratuities. Did the person go out of their way to make you feel fun? Did you have, they talk about bartenders are like the shrinks of the world. I mean, if you want a therapist, go to a bar and sit at the bartender's side. And if the bartender doesn't play therapist, people don't tip them. And that's weird, man.
Oh
It's like,
gosh.
why are you going to, and the bartender I feel bad for bartenders, and half of them don't drink. They just, they're drinking wheatgrass before they go to work, and they're looking at you going, you know, lady, break up with him already. Go home. I'll call you an Uber. So we've got to kind of think of what we're projecting out there as travelers. That's my
Right.
point. You want to have a good time, have a good time. If your server is not there to let you have a good time and sucks. I mean, we've had, I remember once Nancy and I were in Vegas with a friend of ours, and we had a doll that would repeat this doll. It was a garden gnome. You squeeze the garden gnome's belly and he would record what you said, and it would come out in garden gnome voice, right? Which was funny.
Sounds
And
terrifying.
that was funny. Um, and our friend with us, El Commodore from Mexico, he was like my granddad, and we would travel a lot, and he grabbed that, and like we'd check into hotels, and he'd go get his room, and then he would make the gnome speak, and people. He was just making people laugh. It was silly and fun. You're on vacation. I remember we went into it was Laughlin. It wasn't even Vegas. It was Laughlin, and there was no one in this bar or restaurant. It was Nancy, him, and I having a nightcap to go to our rooms, and he brought out the thing, and the bartender was like just giving us the eye, and we didn't go overboard. Now I understand if someone made the room uncomfortable or started playing with this doll over the garden gnome doll over and over again, or got rude or whatever. We didn't do that. It was just silly. And he's like, we're closing in an hour. And we were just like, well, we're just here for a nightcap. He was so rude. It was just like, you shouldn't be in your
Wow.
job. We're supposed to be here for fun. And, you're supposed to be upgrading us to have two nightcaps before we go to bed, right? That's your job, and you make more tip money. And he was rude. And so the Commodore looks at him. He's like, well, you're not fun. I think we're going to just not do this. And he goes, yeah, and take your little doll with you too. And the Commodore is like, uh-oh. I'm like, let me, this man has served. You don't want to mess with the Commodore. He's got to name the Commodore for a reason. No, it was really bad, but you know what we did? We just moved on to a different restaurant and had a good evening. And that was that. We didn't sit and like blast the world. Obviously that guy, who knows what happened with that guy? Who knows if his wife just left him or something? You never know, you know,
You never
maybe she
know.
had a garden gnome that drove him nuts. Who knows? You know? But
She too had
I,
been terrified by a garden gnome.
I know some people have, phobias of garden gnomes, but that garden gnome was so cool. I wish we still had it. It's so fun. You just push it, it would say things. Anyway, so that's the end of our gratitude conversation here of gratitude and gratuities, right? Yeah, have gratitude. That would be the word, right?
Yeah.
Gratuities come from
Yeah.
grateful, gratitude.
Exactly. Be grateful and show that gratefulness.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you as always, Cheryl. It's been fun. And we did talk cake and, we always talk longer than normal because I brought out a garden gnome. All right. Well, everyone, keep up with Cheryl. Go to her website, heywannago.com. And her link for her blog is in the episode notes as well, or just go to her website, heywannago.com. And you can find her there. Also on Facebook, Hey Wanna Go Travel. She's also on Instagram. So keep up with her there. So thanks so much, Cheryl.
Thanks for your time. Good to chat with you.
You too. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station Travel and Leisure Show, brought to you by Big Blend Magazines. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com or blendradioandtv.com. Happy travels!